man is back.
Oh, okay, boys. Oh my gosh, the man got that stuff. This is a 5 out of freaking 5.
It is beat making time.
Next week is E3 week. My album comes out next week.
I have the leopard. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But look at that, my God.
This is your boy.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube citizens, y'all know who this is. This is your boy Dash the Inferno. Back at it with another Pokemon Unite commentary video gameplay for you guys. And by the time you're watching this, I will be on a flight back home from Florida, or I will be home from Florida already, depending on when I drop this video. So, but this was recorded before I left for Florida. Now, let's get on with this story that I didn't even know about until a few days ago, but the article came out a little over a month ago, actually. So what am I talking about here? This is from videogameschronicle.com, and the title is Game Publishers Won't Support Libraries for Preserving Online Games. And then the subtitle here, ESA lawyer claims there is currently no legal way to keep online games active after official support has ended. So let's go on here. What's going on here, brother? Let's get into this article. The Entertainment Software Association has shot down the idea of supporting libraries and the preservation of defunct online games, for example, The Crew. As reported by Game Developer last week, and I probably should look at their article as well, since they reported it first. And actually, I did have their article open originally, but it's a longer article than the one from Video Game Chronicle. But let's get on with it. ESA lawyer Steve Englund, how you pronounce his name, E-N-G-L-U-N-D, was asked about a theoretical scenario in which public libraries were permitted to preserve online video games after all official support had concluded. In response, Steve said there was currently, and I'm quoting here, no combination of limitations ESA members would support to provide remote access, end quote. The ESA's members include virtually every major game publisher, including Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, EA, and Take-Two. Currently, video games developers and publishers have no legal obligation to maintain access to online services beyond their official support. Okay, which makes sense because, it costs money to keep these online games going for years. So, and they want to make more. So it makes sense. I understand that part. But here's the thing, though. Let's continue on with the article. It's also not currently legal for fans to resurrect online games that have been abandoned either. Although this hasn't stopped several fans' efforts for older titles. This has led dozens of games to be completely unplayable, a number that only grows due to the prevalence of titles requiring an online connection and, in some cases, servers. Steve said that a physical location housing these games and allowing easy access isn't a solution in his opinion. He called this kind of access to the titles, and I'm quoting here, "it's sufficient progress," end quote. Mike Ayes, an advanced access content system, the post-DVD era privacy protection standard attorney, took Steve's side looking for more substance and any adjustment of the rules. Mike said he would have concerns about verification when it comes to establishing physical locations that would preserve online titles, saying that it's not clear physical premises will actually be effective. In response to this, Video Game History Foundation Director Phil Salvador said that public libraries are not best suited to the preservation efforts due to a lack of manpower and the scale of the issue. Last year, the Video Game History Foundation, in partnership with the Software Preservation Network, claimed that 80% of classic video games releases in the United States were critically endangered. Technology lawyer Kendra Albert condemned the ESA's attitude, especially in regards to concerns that the games could be accessed for non-academic purposes against the risks of rights holders. Albert says it doesn't feel fair to discount the preservation efforts of academic institutions when it comes to preservation purely because players will be able to access the games for non-research purposes. And I'm like, what? But they're a game. If they're going to access the game, they want to play it. Obviously, like who does research on video games? Like outside of scientists and things of that nature, whatever. That's fine and dandy. But if a regular person like, oh, I want to play Grand Theft Auto 4 online, wants to get on just to play it, what's the harm in that? What's the harm in that? Now let's look at the game developer article here real quick. So they did post an update. Again, this was a month ago, where they said in an email to game developer, the ESA, and in case you're wondering what the ESA stands for, let me see if I can find what the ESA stands for. I'm not sure if they have, okay, the Entertainment Software Association. So that's basically what that stands for. The ESA called claims of the game industry shutting down libraries preservation attempts as simply not accurate. And here's a quote here. We have long been committed to the preservation of video games and support efforts by cultural institutions to build physical video game collections. It wrote, it's important to note that ESA and its members are committed to the historical preservation of games, which kind of hard to believe, by the way, but let's move on. Pointing to the Copyright Office already allowing legitimate libraries and institutions archiving rights, the ESA stressed is in favor of preservation so long as it doesn't violate developers' rights under copyright laws. The industry's, and this is a quote here, the industry's creative and economic vitality depends on strong copyright protections. ESA and its member companies actively support professional efforts to preserve video games and do so in ways that does not jeopardize future economy opportunities for their creative works, end quote. So there you go with that. Now let's take a look at the original article. We're going to just skim for this. So the ESA continues to not have a hand in any efforts towards game preservation. The new statements from the organization came in a hearing held by the United States Library of Congress Copyright Office to evaluate a proposed copyright exemption for remote access to archive video games for video game researchers. This exemption was proposed by the Software Preservation Network in 2023. During the hearing, lawyer, Steve was asked about the possibility of allowing libraries to preserve legacy games. In response, he said there's currently no combination. We read that part already, so there you go with that. And then they mentioned that 87% of games, so there's that. And then let's move on to the next paragraph. During the call, multiple solutions to address the ESA's concern over remote academic access to older games were proposed, but all shot down by Steve. He was not satisfied with either proposals to restrict access to those with academic credentials, implying many institutions would set up simple rubber stamping checks to allow wide access, and deride the idea that limiting the exemption to collections with physical offices would be a satisfactory requirement. On the latter topic, he said that any online-based library could set up a physical office to meet that standard and allow for the creation of what is effectively a free-to-play arcade hosting a huge library of classic titles. To him, the worst thing for a non-profit organization or anywhere with an online archive would be to put a preserved game with fewer restrictions online. That kind of remote access would be insufficient progress when it comes to preservation. And then they brought in Mike Ellis. They mentioned him, saying that, yeah, he agreed and things of that nature. And then I'm not sure if we read this quote. Let me see. Anybody can have a mailing address, says Mike, when it comes to just checking boxes as opposed to having anything verified. I would have concerns. It's not clear physical premises will actually be effective. So during the hearing, other speakers were adamant that something needed to be done about game preservation and that both Steve and Mike were missing the point, which I agree. VGHF library director, we mentioned, Phil Salvador, argue most libraries lack the manpower, and we read that already. Institutions making the active effort to do this are in the single-digit numbers, he speculated. Only specialized institutions or collections could really make use of the exemption for remote digital access. And then they mentioned technology lawyer Kendra Albert, so we talked about that already. And yeah, and we go call it right from the article. So this article is mostly talking about video games that are mostly online. Like, for example, that have some online capabilities. Like, we can play online with other people, like SOCOM 2, like the older Call of Duties, the older Grand Theft Autos, and things of that nature. So here's my thing with that. So first of all, when it comes to video games, whether they're online or offline, yeah, they need to be preserved, because there was a lot of great games that came out over the years that this newer generation missed out on. Granted, yeah, you could say, well, they could always just come out with remakes, but now the question is, you're coming out with a remake of a game that came out once upon a time that cost like $30, $40, $50, and you're charging $70, maybe $80, something like that. And it's like, and some of us still have those games. some of us still have those games. So it's like, why would we pay for that again when we have them already? But at the same time, it's like, well, when we had those games before, that was on the Nintendo 64, that was on the Super Nintendo. So now you talk about playing them on the Switch, which is not physically possible. So you have no choice in the matter. Unless you want to say, oh, if you have the game, send us the email proof, whatever. But even with that, that still could be like fabricated. So, I mean, what can you do about that? That's one thing. So, in terms of the online-only video games, things of that nature, like The Crew, for example, it's tough because of the fact that there is a demand from people who want to play older video games that have like online access. Like there really is. There really is. And in fact, there is a I heard about this recently, like a group or organization that actually creates servers for people to play the function online video games. But with The Crew, which I reported recently, Ubisoft set off with an array where you can't get The Crew and resurrect it. Like they set it up that way, which to me is bogus because it's like, then how people gonna remember The Crew? You know, how people who may still want to play it, how they gonna play it? You know, like, you know, so something like that, yeah, it does need to be addressed because, like, and not just for research purposes or academic purposes. No, because people love the game and it's, you know, they feel heartbroken that it had to go under and they still want to play it. It's that simple. So something needs to be done, again, not just for the sake of research or for academic purposes, but for the sake of people who are still fans of the game, that still want to play the game, even though it may be 5 years old, 10, 20, 50 years old, whatever the case may be. So that's the whole point here. People still want to play these games. Is it like the majority? Probably not. But there still is a market for people wanting to play these games. Like, yes, there is. You know, like that may not be the case for some people, but there is. Like, there really, really is. I can't confirm, like, for which game and who it is, whatever the case may be, but I'm not going to shut down the idea that there are people out there that still want to play The Crew, or that there's people out there that still want to play SOCOM 2, or the original Call of Duties, or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to shut that down because that would not be realistic, and that would just be idiotic, in my opinion. So, something needs to be done in terms of, like, giving people access to play these old video games. It sucks. Yeah, I understand companies like putting the plug on them because it costs them money. But if somebody else wants to pick up the slack, let them pick up the slack. Now, in terms of them like fearing about the whole copyright thing, which is also understandable because if somebody else pick up the slack, they can easily start charging people, which is a problem because, yeah, that is kind of breaking the rules here, or the law rather, saying that you took property that somebody else used to own, or technically they still own, but they shut it down, but you took it, bring it back to life, and now you're making money off of that company and their product. That is a problem. Like, that is a total problem, and that is a concern. So there has to be a group, an organization of some kind that can get access to these online defunction games, bring it back to life, and let people play it for free. That, like, it has to be something like that. And again, the problem, like, if they are willing to put money down themselves to make this a possibility, so be it. So be it. But something needs to be done about that because, again, there is a market for people who want to play these games. So something just needs to be done. I don't know what it is, but something does need to be done. So if you have any ideas, let me know in the comment section below because this is a tough situation in terms of online defunction games like the Call of Duties, like The Crew, you know, things of that nature. Not like Super Mario RPG, the original, or something like that, where you can play that offline, wherever the case may be. No, not nothing like that. So there you go with that. I'm gonna call it a wrap. So with all that said, y'all know what this is. This is boy New J Gatsby, aka New Stephen A. Smith, saying peace out, y'all, and I'll see y'all next time. Yeah.